Hello. Now, this is a kanthal wire that I'm going to unspool from the spool that we have it on. This usually untwist about, I don't know, 5 or 6 inches away from the spool. When I'm doing micro coils, I will leave it on the spool. I don't want to go ahead and clip it off. That way I can save a little bit of the wire when I do it that way. I use this screwdriver right here as my guide. I wrap the coils around it. This way, using something allows you to keep both coils consistent when you're wrapping. In this coil here, I'm just going to wrap 7 wraps on each one. And then once I have the coils wrapped, I'm going to squish them in here. It helps get the compression of the coil going. It's going to be further compressed later once we get the pliers out, needle nose, and torch them together. But now that I got it twisted, I'll just go ahead and clip it off the spool. Then I'm going to pull this off of here and set it to the side, just kind of adjusting my leads a little bit there. Now I'm going to do the second one. Basically, it's the same exact step. I can hang on to the screwdriver. Again, I'm going to twist 7 wraps. You want to make sure that the both coils are the same amount of wraps so that the resistance is the same and that they light up the same. And again, I squish it together and get it looking all nice and neat. And then I'm going to end up clipping it off. So, that's the kanthal. If you buy it from us, it comes on these little spindles. It's pretty snazzy. Alright, now I'm going to press these up onto the pliers. And this way I squish them together. I try to make sure to squish it together as evenly as possible. You know, you don't want it to be all warped and bent and stuff like that. And go ahead and torch it down and get it real hot. Try to make sure it gets glowing. I'll even squeeze it a little bit as I'm going. That way it'll get nice and squished together and try to be like one solid mass of wire. Once I get it heated up nice and glowing red, I'll put it to the side. You know, obviously make sure you don't burn your fingers. That wire will be hot. And then I grab the second one and do the same thing with it. Squishing it, making sure it looks good and straight. And then torch it down. Alright, so now that I got both coils compressed and heated together, it's time to start putting them on. Now I'm using a Trident clone, and Trident clone is pretty easy to build on because it's got slits that go inside the post, so you just kind of slide the wire down into the post and then you screw the little top cap onto it, which sandwiches the wire into place. So just slide it down in there, and I use that blue screwdriver that I used to wrap the coils around. I'll slide it through there, and then I use that as kind of a guide to kind of keep my my coil in the place where I want it as I'm attaching it to the post. Now I take this little screwdriver or the little screw, put it on the post, and then screw it down. And I'm just doing the negative right now. Of course, since the positive is going to be have 2 leads going through it, I'll save that one for last after I get the second coil into position. And of course, you want to make sure that negative lead is tightened down as snug as you can. On the second coil, I've used a red screwdriver. Both of these screwdrivers have came with different tanks, but basically I used the red screwdriver the same way as the blue. I use it as a guide to kind of keep both coils parallel and keep them in the position I want. And then I just again slide the leads down into the slots. I take the little screws that go over the top cap and screw them down onto the post. It can be a little finicky because they're so small, but still it's easier than any other dripper I've built on to date. Now in this case, since we got both coils in position, we can go ahead and screw down the positive post as well. And what I like to do is kind of tug on the leads, kind of getting it snug as I can. And of course, I want to try to make the coils as consistent on both sides. So if one's a certain distance away, I want to make sure that the other one is the same distance away. I'm going to try to keep the leads all the same length if you can. That way when you hit the fire button, everything lights up consistently and heats up at the same rate. Now I'll go ahead and drag out everything attached, and we'll pull out the screwdrivers and then just kind of look over everything, and do some final touch-ups here. Seemed like one of the coils was a little off. I'm just going to make sure all the post caps are down tight and snug, and make sure I don't have any of these stray leads leading anywhere, and then go ahead and snip those off. If you fire it before you clip those, you want to make sure that you don't have them touching each other, because you could cause a short, which will end up snapping one of your leads or one of your coils and cause you to have to start all over again. Alright, so now I got them in place. I got my battery in. Let's go ahead and fire this dry before we get any kind of wicks going in there. Make sure everything's firing the way we want it to. Both coils lighting at the same time, getting a nice consistent glow. What I like to do is get them heated up nice and hot, and then I'll take my pliers and squish the coils together one last time, because usually sliding those screwdrivers in and out can kind of separate your coils. But this way they're nice and tight in one solid piece. So now that I know that it fires and everything's functioning correctly, I'm going to go ahead and take it off my mod. We're going to put it on our ohm meter and see what the resistance is of these coils. This is just a little simple ohm meter with a 510 connection and an ego connection. We sell these for $20 if you're interested. So I got me a 0.49 ohm coil. That's about where I was shooting for. I was shooting for a 0.5. I mean, 0.01. I think that is pretty snazzy. Alright, so now I'm going to put it all back on there. Now I'm going to grab some cotton. Now, I'm sure there are 100 different ways of doing it, but the way I do it is I just take a 100% cotton. You want to make sure it is 100% cotton. Then I go in there and I'll just kind of pull a little bit out. I like to do both wicks all in one. That way everything's more consistent, and I have consistent wicks from one side to the other. I just pinch off a couple inches though, and then I just start twisting it up. You want to get it tight, but you don't want to get it too tight. You want to get it small, but you don't want to get it too small. Basically, you want it to be the size of the coil. but you want to be a little bit smaller so that you can slide it in there and pull it through without, tearing your wick to pieces. Yeah, that's not fun. Just about there. Now that I have it together, I'm going to go ahead and snip it in half. These fingernail clippers, man, they come in handy for all kinds of stuff. Alright, now I'm going to try to fish it through the coils. I kind of like to twist it in the same direction that I've already twisted the wick together itself. That way it kind of screwdrivers its way through there. Since it's offset, I'll offset the wick. I don't always kind of set it dead center. I'll kind of tug it a little one way, have the other side a little further. And this side I think it's going to fight me a little bit. The wick isn't quite tight enough on the end. Let's see if I can tighten it up a little more. There we go. Get some nice point on there. It should slide through easy. There we go. Nice, beautiful. Pull that through a little bit. See, I think I'm going to trim it off a little bit. Get rid of that little tiny tip and get this in there a little tighter. Yeah. And then I'm going to do the other side. Trim a little bit off there. Tuck them under. I kind of like to tuck them underneath the coil. That way that the tips are kind of touching where the bottom of the coil's at. I don't know if that makes it better, if it makes it worse. I don't know. Seems to work for me though. There's all kinds of different ways to set up your wicks. There's all kinds of different ways to set up your coils. Everybody has their own method, their system, the different builds. There's serpents and dragon tails, and man, there's all kinds of crazy stuff. Alright, so now I got everything tucked in there. Now it's important with this cotton that you do not fire it before it's wet. So grab my trusty juice and get those wicks nice and saturated. You want to make sure you get up underneath the wicks too, because if there's any dry spot when you fire up that coil, it's going to burn right through it. And it will literally burn right through it if there's no juice on it. So you need to keep that in mind also when you're actually enjoying your vape. It starts to get a little different taste. Probably needs a couple drops. So let me tell you, you get you a dry hit where you burn that cotton, it does not taste pleasant. Alright, so I got it all tucked in, got it nice and juiced up, and fired up a little bit, producing a little bit of vapor. Blow on it a little bit. Alright, so looks to be working pretty good. Put a couple more drops on it just to top it off. Put the cap back on. Put the cap on and I'll give you guys a nice little rip. Send you on your way. And there you go, guys. Well, thanks for watching.